to the Small Business Show. I'm your host, Lori Brooks. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. This week, I had the pleasure of chatting with Susan Owen, CEO of Millennia 3, a media deployment company that provides operations services to TV networks and ad agencies. Millennia 3 helps brands launch advertising campaigns by managing the production, traffic, and airplay verification process of linear media placement. Susan, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Laura. I'm glad to be here.
I'm super excited to have you on, and I am super excited to dive into your journey. Before we get there, I want to rewind the clock just a bit. I want you to go back to, say, junior high or high school. Think through a time when an aunt or an uncle, or maybe even a mentor, asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? What was your answer to that question, Susan?
You know, I think I had a pretty clear vision from early on that I wanted to be an artist. I didn't have a clear definition of what an artist was or how an artist would make money and support themselves. But in my idealized young mind, I was going to draw and paint, and that was somehow going to everything was going to work out.
I love it. Oh, goodness. In fact, when my daughter was very young, art was the one thing that she despised. I mean, literally for 2 hours one afternoon, she cried and cried and cried. Why? Because the assignment was to draw a portrait of herself. Little do you know, she's graduating from mass art this year. So life is crazy. It takes turns when you least expect it to. Yeah. So you were thinking about becoming an artist. Yeah. How did your journey evolve?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I started actually on that path when I graduated from high school. I studied art in high school, dropped as many science and math courses as I could get away with so that I could fill up my free time with the arts and things like that. I actually I went to high school in the Atlanta area, ditched the South and moved to New York to pursue my dream of being the starving artist, and starving I was. And I went to art school there for a little while, and it was an absolutely incredible experience. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of the educational journey. I would encourage anybody, when you're young, it just seems like you know, there's so much you want to get done, but it was a great time in my life to explore and try new things. And I think that there's a lot of things you don't know that exist. Like, so today working in advertising and media, kind of something that was never on my radar back then. So, definitely. But so after a little bit of time up there, I came back to Georgia. I was just really not quite financially set up, or just wasn't ready in my life for New York on my own. So I moved back to Georgia, moved back in with my parents, was desperate to get out of that basement. And my father had a few years prior founded an advertising company that worked with broadcasters primarily. And he offered me a job, and he said, if you come work for me, you can learn some skills, make some money, and, you know, and he loved the idea. My mom already worked for the business. He loved the idea of having the family close. So I went to work for him, and that was my entry into the media business.
Absolutely adore that. Now, first of all, I'll admit, I don't think you even have to be an artist to be starving in New York. So
true.
New York is New York. It is what it is, you know, much like Massachusetts. I'm here in Boston, by the way. Yeah, it is what it is. If you're in New England area, lifestyle, it's crazy. It is crazy. So kudos to you for taking the leap and going to New York and launching your journey in that manner, because it is important at that age to explore, to test, to take the time to figure yourself out, regardless as to whether or not we ever return home, which the majority of us do myself included. At some point you return home, but you have to take that time to get out there and test the waters and figure yourself out. And you did that. And then you decided, you know what? Okay, it's the time to go back home. And you were blessed enough to have that opportunity to have the family business in place. And it was something that I'm sure growing up, you were thinking to yourself, probably not on, like you said, probably not on your radar, even though it was a family business. It wasn't a thought process for you, which, like most of us, up until I would say maybe early 2000s, media and the arts weren't necessarily introduced in schools. They weren't. It's the classic arts to a certain degree, but it was advertising and publishing, things of that sort are not necessarily introduced in school. So you were lucky enough to get that introduction and that thought process. What made you actually make the decision to go ahead and work for the family business? Because some kids decide they don't want to have anything to do with it. So what was it that really for you was the driving force to say, you know what, this is the direction I want to go? I know you've made some real changes and so forth while you've been there. So I want to get there, but I really want to hear what that thought process was like for you to really make that decision.
Yeah, no, it was such an unlikely path for me because, like you said, it was not something I was interested in doing. When I was growing up, both of my parents worked in broadcasting. They worked in TV stations, radio stations. And so we moved around a lot. We were jumping from the Houston market to the Washington market to the Atlanta market, Chicago. We were all over the place. And when you're a kid, all of that change and not, I'd make some new friends and I'd be like, oh, okay, bye new friends. I got to go make some more new friends. And I just really, I was like, I don't want to do this. I do not want this to be my life. So I promised myself that I was never going to work in the media business at all. So it was just, I had sworn it off. I was like, I'm going in a different direction. I'm moving across the country. This is my path. But when I wound up back at home, I had enrolled in a local school here just to start doing something. I was waiting tables and I was just really kind of aimless and not quite sure what to do next. So when my dad gave me an opportunity to make some money and learn something, I was like, how bad can it be? I'll do this for right now until I figure out what's going to happen next. And so I ended up going to work for him for about 2 years. And during that time, really got a taste of advertising and marketing, broadcasting and media. And about 2 years into my time there, one of our clients who worked for a group of major cable television networks recruited me away from the family business and said, why don't you come over and work on the network side? And that really thrust me into the world, working for a giant media corporation. And that is what kind of turned on the flame for me of seeing what a exciting and vast world that was.
Nice. What was that dynamic like? Having been taken away from the family business into this other business, what was that thought process like and that pivot for you? I'm sure that wasn't an easy decision either.
Yeah, it was. I was grateful that my parents supported my decision, and it wasn't because I know some family businesses, it's like there's, an expectation or obligation that, you're going to carry the torch forward. But I think that my parents knew I needed to go out and sow my wild oats and have my own experiences like they did. And it was incredible. And I was working for an organization that had all these different media brands, and there was entertainment and there was news and there was sports. And I started working in the marketing department for some of the networks. And I got exposure to the strategic side of the business, the creative side of the business, the operations side of the business. And I was 22. I didn't have a college degree. But I was just like a sponge, and I was just taking it all in, meeting such a diverse group of a network of people with different talents and backgrounds. And that experience, to this day, if you look at my LinkedIn, a lot of my contacts today are people that I met throughout that experience over about 6 or 7 years that I was there. And so it's the kind of experience that I would hope anybody would get, to work for an organization at some point early in their career, which allows them to learn new things and experiment and make new connections. So it was an incredible kind of gift and an opportunity that I had. And I did work really, really hard. They definitely got the most out of me, but I learned so much in the experience. It was amazing.
Nice. And I thank you so much for sharing that piece of the journey, because it is really important to talk about where those tidbits come from throughout the journey. So it's not as though you went on this journey and, embarked on marketing and media. As you said, we started off in New York as an artist looking for your way. And there's a lot of people who have that start. And then there's a lot of people who go home. But then there is the mindset piece that takes over. And I think because you had this network support, from your parents and then from the context that you had throughout the journey and the work that you were doing, it really allowed for you to maintain that level of mindset, as well as take in every bit of knowledge that you were exposed to throughout that journey. And that's another really important piece, as we're moving throughout life, never mind just our entrepreneurial journey, but we have to pick up all those tidbits along the way. And that's what contributes to the journey in the end. A lot of the times we don't recognize what those pieces are as we're busy going through them. You know what I mean? I know my audience is so tired of hearing this phrase, but I call it wino mode. When we're too busy, like working in and not on either ourselves or our business or life itself, there's a lot that we don't take in or pay attention to, but it's a good thing that you have the ability and the support to do so. So tell us about how Millennia 3 became a part of your journey, please.
Yeah, it's so interesting to think of how it kind of all comes first full circle. Growing up, I did not have a great relationship with my dad. We were like oil and water, personality wise, as I'm sure many teenage daughters and their fathers could say. And when I started working for him and started making a little bit of money, I flew the coop. I was like, okay, I'll see you at the office. I'm getting my own place. And he and I always had a little bit of a tough dynamic, but he was running this business that was really successful. And after I had been working for the networks for a while, his company was continuing to grow, and he had an opening in a position that was in kind of a management role. And I really wanted to explore more about what it would be like to lead. And I wasn't really finding those opportunities where I was. So I said, hey, you want to give me a job again? I'm interested in coming back, and because I really wanted to grow my skills and my experience. It was not the ambition of taking over the family business. That was not my intention. I thought, this is a good opportunity for me to grow in my career. So, and meanwhile, I had gone back to school and finished my bachelor's degree in advertising. So now I had the education that matched my work experience. So that coming back here was never, taking over the business was never my intention. But what I really discovered over those first few years I was here after I came back and getting to try some new things is that my passion really was not so much in the particular industry or the specific work we were doing, but it was really about the skills I was learning and the opportunity to use them, and discovering that I would be able to translate those in really any kind of business, collaborating with people, communication and creative brainstorming and all of these kinds of things that I realized was more about the kind of role I'm in and not necessarily the kind of business or industry I'm in. And so once I kind of was able to learn that about myself and learn more of where my talents were actually showing up, I was able to grow more in my position and do more to contribute for the business.
You really took stock of the pieces of personal growth that were exciting you more so than the positional growth itself. And that sometimes can definitely direct the journey again, because, it's all about how you're feeling throughout the day. Again, the foundation is mindset. I appreciate that you explained the way that you were growing throughout your career and kind of taking stock of those skills and really utilizing them with maintaining mindset and really kind of using that to help yourself grow throughout the career. Mindset is a really foundational piece of this journey. So to be able to recognize those pieces for yourself and be able to take those and move forward was excellent. So
well, I do really think that to your point, the mindset and the perspective is really kind of what it's about. I had a lot of those growing moments for me throughout my career have come really when there was maybe some friction or even some pain in some area, whether it's I'm feeling like I'm at a dead end, or I feel like I'm not being heard or seen, or I'm stuck, or I don't know how to solve this problem. And in looking for solutions and kind of deciding to look inward, which is definitely something that comes with years and maturity, is learning to be able to look inward. That's really what a lot of times turned me on to the insights that led me forward. I was really coming out of struggles, and not just because I was merrily skipping along and decided to try something new. Sometimes it really came out of feeling the pain and looking for a new way to move forward that felt more like a flow and less like pushing a boulder up a hill.
And there's a lot of journeys that are birthed out of that pain or out of that desire that has to be there, the willpower in order to push yourself forward. And a lot of that is birthed from some sort of pain, some sort of frustration, some sort of hill that were obstacle that someone is facing that they need to get through. So thank you for bringing that up. I'd love for you to share with us how you are working through Millennia 3 now. Where are you with the company?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been 10 years since I returned to the business, and so much has happened during that time. I got to learn a lot in kind of a middle management position for numerous years, working across our departments with our small but mighty team. And then in 2020, my father passed away. We thought that we knew he was never going to retire. That was a sure thing because he was so devoted to this business. It was his heart and soul. He loved the people that worked for him. This was just, this is what got him out of bed every day. And when we used to talk about grooming me for maybe taking over the business someday. And I think he loved the idea of it, but the idea of letting go of things, it never happened for him. So when he passed away, I kind of had that moment where I woke up one day and all of a sudden I owned a business and had to immediately pivot in a totally new way. And I was also handling his estate as well. So I was talking to lawyers and accountants and financial advisors and all these kinds of people and thrust into this world that was completely foreign to me. I knew our business like the back of my hand as far as what we're great at and our products and services and all of that. But how to be a small business owner was completely foreign to me. So very long story short, the last 3 years for me have been an education, a journey, an adventure, some really tough days and some incredibly triumphant moments. And it's been really exciting for the business because although my father had all this passion, he was kind of an old dog from another time. And so getting to come in as a younger person from a different generation, a woman, different experiences, some different perspectives, and collaborate with the team that was here. We have an amazing team. Most of our employees are long timers. Working with the talents and the voices that were here to take a step back and say, this is our chance. And it was also 2020 when everything for everybody was thrown up in the air. For us to sit together and say, okay, this is it. This is our moment. What's not working that we think we can fix? What is great about this place? What are we superstars at? And where are we falling short? And kind of just really go all the way back to the foundation and the roots of our business and start working from the ground up to chart a course for the future. And it has been a labor of love, but I think one of the great lessons and experiences throughout all of this has been the way, just like in a family, they say it takes a village. The same for me has very much been true of taking over and running and trying to grow our small business has been calling upon the village of the people who work here, the business associates I've gained over the years, the referrals to new connections, listening, experimenting, gambling sometimes, but really relying on a community of other people to bring it together and not trying to solve it all on my own.
Learning how to delegate is probably the hardest piece of this journey.
It is true.
But my condolences. And I am really proud of you for taking that step that you took in 2020, because I'm positive it wasn't an easy role to step into. It could have been something that you chose you weren't ready for. It's not always something that people say, okay, I will take over it. No, it's something that you were questioning and really debating, and it wasn't even a role that you were interested in. But as fate had it, it landed there for you, and you were then thrust into a world that you had to figure out how to manage and had to figure out how to, move forward. And then had the opportunity to sit with the team to really figure all of that out and make adjustments to now make the business, exactly where you are happy to have it and be able to carry forward from where you are. So congratulations on all that you've accomplished and all, that you've achieved throughout the past couple of years of the practice. What are you looking forward to with Millennium 3?
So we are working in advertising. You can imagine it's an industry that is constantly changing and evolving. You look at the way technology has evolved, the way that consumers interact with media and content has changed so much in the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And so the way advertisers seek to reach and build relationships with consumers is constantly evolving. And so for us, it's a really interesting time because it gives us a chance to continuously look for new opportunities, experiment, figure out how we're going to stay relevant, how we're going to evolve alongside our clients. So I think for us, one of the things I'm most looking forward to is discovering what we'll do next, that, what's around the corner for us that hasn't even kind of revealed itself yet. When you have a strong team and the team trusts each other, it creates the freedom to try some new things and say, okay, this is not every idea is a good idea and not every experiment yields a positive result. But when you have that close connection and a strong team, you can kind of take those risks and say, well, let's go find out.
The ability to rapidly pivot when you have that smaller group, unlike larger corporations where, you've got the red tape and compliance and so forth, it's a lot easier when it comes to a small business. So I agree 100%. And with the way that technology is going right now and the rapid changes, and I totally agree with you. It's exciting to see what's coming next. So I'm curious. Let's see if we can rewind the clock once again. If you had the chance to go back, say 10, 15 years and tell yourself just one thing, what do you think that would be?
Oh, I would definitely tell myself to trust my instincts more.
Definitely.
There have been some moments when I've really struggled with, and like we all do, with insecurities as we're growing. Definitely. And self-doubt as we're thrown into new situations. But looking back, I can see so many difficult moments that I was able to kind of get to my goal or overcome the obstacles, that I wish I could go back to that person and say, you're going to do it. So trust it. You just can't see it yet, but you're going to do it.
I love that. Trusting your gut. That is definitely an important piece of not just the entrepreneurial journey, but again, life overall. So thank you for that. I love all of the gems in this episode. They're not just gems for the entrepreneurial journey. We're talking more about gems for life in general. So thank you for that. The show is really designed to, help entrepreneurs with their journey to think outside of the box as to, industries that they may not have been thinking of when they're thinking about an entrepreneurial journey, much like you weren't thinking about advertising when you started yours. So I'm curious, if you had the chance to say, wave a magic wand and change anything in your industry, what would that look like and why? This way, our audience has the opportunity to look at challenges in an industry, like I said, that they weren't thinking of, and maybe create their own business idea from that challenge.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I think that especially in advertising being these days such a data-driven business, and you can think of all of the data and information about ourselves that we turn over to big companies on a daily basis, just by sending emails and looking at websites and using apps. I would love to see the industry pivot towards a place of maybe some more thoughtfulness and respect and kind of healthy boundaries around respecting people's kind of space and privacy, so that we can use the information that people want to share to help guide them to the products and services that will work best for them, but maybe with a little more class and restraint, I would say.
I agree.
It's funny working in advertising, a lot of times people, I'll tell people, oh yes, I work in advertising. And they're like, oh, that's interesting. I'll say, trust me, I know nobody likes ads. We all know this.
Right. Nobody likes ads, but I agree with you. There's a limit to how much information should be used and should be paid attention to. So yeah, definitely, if there's a way to really start shifting what that looks like, the respect around boundaries in some way, shape, or form, that would be outstanding. So Susan, I thank you so much, like I said, for all of the gems in this episode. This is truly special. I truly appreciate you sharing your journey with us today. Please share the best way for our viewers to find you.
Absolutely. So I am on LinkedIn. It's Susan Owen Lowers. My LinkedIn profile is Susan IRL, and you can always learn more about our business or contact us through our website, which is millennia3.com.
Excellent. And I, of course, will include links to both your LinkedIn as well as Millennia 3 in the show notes page. Susan, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lori. This is great to talk to you.